Okay, wow. Let's unpack this. You just heard, well, a glimpse into a really bold vision from Michael Saylor. He's the executive chairman of MicroStrategy. And he's talking about a future for Bitcoin that, honestly, most people haven't even begun to really grasp, let alone imagine, right? So today, we're taking a deep dive into Michael Saylor's latest thoughts, his pronouncements on Bitcoin's future, and his dual strategy for creating wealth in this digital age. You can maybe think of it this way. We're kind of standing at what Saylor might call the digital frontier. Woo. It feels a bit like the early days of the internet, when only a few people really saw its potential beyond just like email or basic websites. Bitcoin, in Saylor's view, it's not just a digital asset or some speculative thing. He sees it as the actual bedrock,
Hmm.
the foundation for a totally new global financial system. Much like the internet became the foundation for, well, everything: information, communication, commerce. It's a really powerful analogy, actually. Suggests something seemingly small today could become essential.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating here, I think, is how Saylor connects the dots. He connects the tech evolution of Bitcoin, how it works, how it's built, with this really radical shift in financial strategy. He's not just throwing out predictions. He's laying out a very specific blueprint,
Yeah.
an actionable one.
Right. Actionable.
Exactly, for individuals, for
Yeah.
companies,
Yeah.
and it really challenges, well, pretty much all the conventional wisdom, doesn't it?
Yeah.
His view, while, definitely bold, maybe even controversial sometimes, it carries weight
Mhm.
because of his commitment to Bitcoin, his track record with MicroStrategy.
He's put his money where his mouth is.
He absolutely has.
Right.
And that makes his viewpoint something you really have to explore, dig into. He's pushing us to think about a world where Bitcoin is way more integrated than most people think is possible right now.
Totally. It's a vision that, well, it demands attention, even if it makes you pause a bit. So our mission today is really to cut through the noise, look at Saylor's core arguments, from institutional adoption predictions to his very direct personal finance advice, and figure out what it all means for you, the listener, standing here at this digital frontier. We'll explore how he sees Bitcoin changing from like a retail thing to a global financial utility, who the big players are going to be, and then we'll dive into his really explicit advice, which is often pretty provocative, on building generational wealth. It's a lot to unpack, so let's just get right into it. Okay, so let's start with the current landscape, looking through Saylor's eyes. He sees individual Bitcoin users right now as these early pioneers, the ones venturing out first. And he paints this really vivid picture, almost a stark choice, really. Two potential outcomes. On one hand, if you have the conviction, the nerve to just hold your Bitcoin, resist selling, he believes you'll end up insanely rich. That's a pretty compelling promise, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And he pairs it with this, like, equally powerful warning. The flip side, he says, is if you take money off the top or you just sell too soon. Maybe you sell a chunk for, I don't know, a fancy car, like his Ferrari example.
Right, the Ferrari.
Feels good now, maybe. But he suggests you'll be left with this deep regret. Always remembering you used to have billions of dollars of Bitcoin, but you sold it for a Ferrari. And that, he says, will be unfortunate.
Hmm.
The core idea here from Saylor is really about patience. It's long-term vision. He's saying hold Bitcoin not just as, like, an investment, but as a strategic asset for generational wealth, something that, when it fully matures, makes those little luxuries seem kind of trivial.
Yeah, don't trade the empire for the quick pleasure.
Exactly. That's the essence of it.
That Ferrari story, it really hits home, doesn't it? It's such a Saylor way to hammer home the point about opportunity cost. And he puts it in context, too, by stressing just how early we still are in all this.
Precisely. He points out that fewer than 0.1% of companies worldwide hold Bitcoin on their balance sheets right now.
0.1%. Wow.
Just think about that. That stat alone tells you we are, as he puts it, incredibly early. And this isn't just some casual remark. He sees this moment as a once-in-a-generation window.
Ah.
A window where individuals, believe it or not, actually have a huge edge over the big corporations and institutions.
How so?
Well, because individuals can stack sats, they can accumulate Bitcoin relatively freely, right? Often without the immediate regulatory hoops, the board meetings, the sheer scale issues that big institutions face.
They can move faster.
Much faster. They have agility. But he warns, that window, it's not staying open forever. Not by a long shot. The whole landscape is set to change, and fast, as these institutions start waking up.
And that change. That brings us right to his vision of the coming institutional flood, unquote. Saylor predicts pretty soon, actually, Bitcoin will no longer be a retail asset. That's a massive shift from how most people see Bitcoin today, right? mostly individuals buying and selling. He sees the main Bitcoin network, the base layer, evolving to mainly serve like 10 to 100,000 big financial institutions, settling large amounts, so not small transactions, not individual trades. We're talking a whole different level of economic
Wait,
activity.
yeah, he gets really specific about who and how much. Saylor pictures this core layer one, the Bitcoin base layer, being used mostly by governments, mega banks, and tech giants. Think Apple, Google, Microsoft, settling massive transactions, hundreds of millions, maybe billions of dollars at a time.
Just huge numbers.
Unbelievable scale. He imagines institutions like Citi, Bank of America, Deutsche Bank, even the Bank of Japan, transacting directly on-chain using Bitcoin.
Yeah.
He even suggests a future where, say, Microsoft might move billions and tens of billions worth of Bitcoin between itself and Google, maybe to sort out complex tech or financial deals without needing the old banking system.
Wow.
And even payment networks like Visa, MasterCard. He thinks they'll eventually hold massive amounts of Bitcoin just to run their global operations smoothly. The key insight from Saylor here is that Bitcoin's real power, its endgame, is as this neutral global settlement network, strong enough for the world's biggest players. And when that institutional adoption really hits the base layer, he's very clear. The price will re-prick violently upward.
Violently upward.
Yeah, reflecting its new role. Not just an asset, but a global financial utility, the digital bedrock for the world economy.
Okay, so that's a powerful image. Bitcoin as the base layer for the giants. But, okay, this raises a really key question. I'm sure listeners are thinking this too. How does a network built for these huge institutional settlements? How does that also work for everyday folks? If layer one is for governments moving billions, how do I buy my copy with Bitcoin? What does that actually look like?
Right, and that's exactly where Saylor's multi-layered vision comes in. It's crucial for understanding scalability. He talks about layer 2s and layer 3s. See, the main Bitcoin blockchain, layer 1, it's designed, like, intentionally for security and immutability, making sure those big transactions are rock solid.
Okay.
But that means it's not naturally optimized for, millions of tiny, fast transactions. If every single coffee purchase tried to settle on layer 1, yeah, the network would grind to a halt and get super expensive.
Right, makes sense.
Which is exactly why you need these other layers. They handle the bulk of the traffic off the main chain, but still anchored to its security. So built on top of that secure layer when you get layer 2s, the big one everyone talks about is the Lightning Network.
Lightning, yeah.
Heard of it. Saylor describes it as a high-speed, high-frequency, low-value settlement network. Technically, it works by creating these payment channels between users. Transactions happen instantly, almost for free within the channel. They only really hit the main Bitcoin blockchain when the channel is opened or closed.
Ah, okay.
This lets it stitch together, as he says, 100,000 or 1 million websites or 1 million mobile apps. This is where your everyday stuff happens. Billions of transactions a day, potentially. Small buys, streaming payments, sending money on an app. It's all about speed and efficiency, making sure those small, frequent transactions don't bog down the main layer. And then you've got layer 3s built even further out. These are usually custom payment layers built by private platforms. Think Apple Pay, Coinbase, Cash App, Visa, others.
Apps we use now.
Kind of, yeah. Technically, they often hide the Bitcoin complexity from you. Maybe they hold the Bitcoin for you, making it feel just like using a regular digital wallet or card. These layer 3s, they're built for even more volume. Maybe billions an hour, Saylor suggests, offering those seamless user-facing experiences. So if you connect all this back to the bigger picture, Saylor sees this multi-layered financial system, all built on Bitcoin. Different tiers handle different needs, but they all reinforce the main asset, Bitcoin itself. Layer 2 and 3 allow for, widespread daily use, while Layer 1 remains the super secure foundation for the huge institutional stuff.
So it covers everything, from coffee to country reserves.
That's the vision, a truly global, comprehensive digital economy, all underpinned by Bitcoin. It's a pretty sophisticated setup he's describing.
It really is. It's expansive, incredibly detailed. It takes Bitcoin way beyond just being an asset you trade. It's like the fundamental plumbing for global money. But Saylor, he takes it even further, doesn't he? He's not just predicting this. He's actively pushing for what he calls the Bitcoin standard. I mean, he makes this incredibly bold statement. Every company, every family owner should adopt the Bitcoin standard, and then he broadens it. Every person on Earth, that's 8 billion people. Every company on Earth, that's 400 million companies. I mean, that's pretty sweeping, almost utopian, right?
It definitely raises a big question. What does he really mean by a Bitcoin standard on that kind of, planetary scale? Because, yeah, he's not just talking about investing some money or a company putting Bitcoin on its balance sheet.
No, it sounds much bigger.
Much bigger. He's talking about a fundamental societal shift, a whole paradigm change in how value works, how it's stored, moved,
Mm.
maybe even how economies are run. Think about past systems. We had a gold standard, right? Currencies tied to gold, supposedly stable.
Mm.
Today, we mostly have fiat standards, money backed by government decree, by trust, but also subject to inflation, political games.
Right.
Saylor's Bitcoin standard suggests moving away from all that, towards a world where Bitcoin with its fixed supply, its transparent, unchangeable ledger, becomes the main store of value, the ultimate settlement layer for everything. In that world, maybe central banks hold Bitcoin reserves instead of gold or dollars. Maybe government debts are priced in Bitcoin. Maybe everyday prices start aligning with Bitcoin's value.
Wow.
It basically means taking away the power of any single group, like a government or central bank, to just print more money whenever they want. And that, in Saylor's view, gets rid of the uncertainty, the distortions caused by inflation and monetary policy. The core idea here is that Bitcoin is just better money, more honest, more predictable, money the world needs to adopt.
And he bases this whole huge vision on a really interesting, almost philosophical idea. Saylor believes there are actual scientific reasons why markets don't work the way you want them to work and why political systems are dysfunctional. That's not just like a casual complaint. It sounds like he sees fundamental flaws, and Bitcoin is the cure.
Yeah, he's pretty passionate about this point. He argues that without a solid monetary foundation, like a truly incorruptible form of capital, societies just can't build functional systems. He sees Bitcoin as the necessary tool to engineer better credit, better equity, and better capital markets. He's very direct. Without Bitcoin, you can't fix these things.
You just can't.
That's his view. He sees the current financial and political systems as inherently flawed, prone to decay, corruption, like they're not scientifically designed for long-term good, but more for short-term fixes or helping insiders. And inflation is a key villain in his story. He sees it as this hidden tax, constantly eating away at savings, messing up investment decisions, causing booms and busts. And Bitcoin, he believes, with its fixed supply, its transparency, its decentralized nature, it's like the scientific antidote. It brings a clarity, a predictability that he argues just isn't there in the current fiat world. And what's maybe even more interesting is his point that most people don't even realize there's a problem because they've never seen a perfect system.
Interesting point.
He suggests we've gotten so used to the imperfect system, the one he sees as broken because of its money, that we're kind of blind to its flaws. We just accept inflation, currency problems, cycles as normal. But Bitcoin, just by existing, offers that clarity. It shows up the problems by being, in his view, a clearly better alternative. Now, it's really important to state this is Michael Saylor's specific, strongly held view on politics and markets and how Bitcoin fixes them. He genuinely seems to believe it's almost a scientific inevitability.
Okay, wow. So we've got this grand vision, Bitcoin as the base layer, the Bitcoin standard as this universal goal based on science. That's definitely a lot to chew on. But what does it mean for us, for individuals trying to, navigate this future, build some wealth practically? And this is where it gets really interesting. Because Saylor lays out two main pillars for future wealth. And one isn't even directly about Bitcoin. He calls them the two biggest trends in the world right now. Digital intelligence, which is AI, and digital capital, which is Bitcoin.
That's right. And Saylor is incredibly strong, almost like urgent about AI. He hammers this point. You should focus on it, master it, figure out how to use it, don't be afraid of it. He doesn't see AI as mainly a threat, taking jobs long term. He sees it as this unbelievable amplifier for what humans can do.
An amplifier.
Exactly. He gives these pretty startling personal examples, like AI doing the work of 20 people that would take a month in just 10 minutes. Or even crazier, 200 man-years of work done in 3 hours.
Whoa.
He actually says he's horrified and terrified if he's not using AI for whatever he's working on. That really shows how essential he thinks it is for productivity now and, well, for making money. His core principle seems to be, the best thing you could do right now is figure out how to get an AI to do your work, to automate it, make it better, scale it up.
And he's not just talking about tech jobs or coding, right? He gives these really practical examples for almost any job. He says, ask yourself, whether you're an artist or, a podcaster like us, how can AI boost what you do? For a podcaster, he throws out ideas like, hey, can I take the podcast, feed it to AI, get it in 100 languages? Can AI market it, translate it, summarize it, sell it? Can AI redistribute it everywhere?
Yeah.
He clearly sees AI as this comprehensive tool, not just for doing tasks faster, but for maximizing everything, output, reach, finding totally new ways to run your business, whatever field you're in.
And diving that deep into AI naturally brings up that big question he also tackles.
Yeah.
Will the AI eat what I'm doing?
Yeah, the big fear for a lot of people.
It's a totally valid concern, right?
Yeah.
With AI moving so fast, Saylor acknowledges that, yeah, things will change. Industries, jobs, some might become obsolete. But his answer isn't to hide from it. It's to lean in hard, adapt, leverage it aggressively. His advice is basically, get so good at using AI that you become essential because you're the one directing these powerful tools.
So you become the AI master, not its victim.
Kind of. The idea is integrate digital intelligence into what you do, and you don't get replaced. You become super productive, more valuable, able to generate wealth on a scale that just wasn't possible before for one person. It's like evolving from someone doing tasks to someone orchestrating intelligence.
Okay, so that's pillar one. Master digital intelligence. Use AI as your amplifier, whatever you do. Now, pillar two for future wealth, according to Saylor, leveraging digital capital. And this is where he gives some really controversial advice, counterintuitive, definitely, on how to actually get this digital capital, meaning Bitcoin. So what does this mean for someone thinking, okay, I want to act on this? How do you get this digital capital based on Saylor's plan?
Well, Saylor's main strategy for getting digital capital, it's bold. It definitely flies in the face of, standard financial advice. He says, leverage long-term, low-cost debt to acquire Bitcoin.
Leverage debt.
And he gives a very specific kind of compelling example, suggesting you could, say, mortgage your house, maybe get a 30-year loan at 2.75%, like those historically low rates. Then he contrasts that tiny interest rate with Bitcoin's historical returns. He notes they've been around 57% a year for the past 5 years.
57% versus less than 3%.
Right. And he does the math out loud, basically saying you could literally lock in, if you borrowed $1 million, you can make $500,000 a year with no work if you did that silly thing. His core insight, his logic is, when your cost of borrowing is way lower than how fast a solid asset like Bitcoin is appreciating, not using that leverage is, well, it's almost financially irrational in his view. A massive mischance.
Okay, but hang on. That's a huge claim, especially, given how volatile Bitcoin has been historically. How does he justify calling that strategy not even risky or zero risk? I mean, what about big market crashes? What would a normal financial advisor say about betting your house like that?
It definitely makes you stop and think, doesn't it? Oh, absolutely. And this is where Saylor's really deep long-term conviction shines through. Or perhaps where people disagree most strongly. From his perspective, the zero-risk idea comes from his rock-solid belief that Bitcoin will inevitably appreciate over the long haul because of its basic properties: fixed supply, decentralized network, being anti-inflationary.
So he sees the long-term trend as guaranteed, basically.
Essentially, yes. He views Bitcoin as the ultimate collateral, digital property that he believes will just keep appreciating faster than any low-cost, long-term debt interest can pile up. Over a long enough timeline, he thinks the chance of Bitcoin not beating that mortgage rate is basically zero. He's working from the assumption that Bitcoin is just superior money and will eventually suck value out of other assets. Now, a conventional financial advisor, they'd scream risk. They'd point straight to Bitcoin's volatility, the huge price swings.
Right.
They'd warn about potential margin calls if your loan is structured that way, or just ending up owing more than your Bitcoin is worth if there's a big crash. They talk about concentration risk, putting all your eggs or your house equity in one volatile basket, leveraging an illiquid asset, your home, for something so wild. But Saylor, he flips the script entirely. He sees the real risk in not owning Bitcoin.
Holding cash is the risk for him.
Exactly. He sees fiat currencies, traditional assets. Those are the risky things because they're constantly being debased, losing value over time.
And yeah, he explicitly says don't pay off your mortgage or hold what he calls weak currencies. He actually sees paying off a mortgage as investing your money in a suppressed government credit instrument that pays 3 or 4%. His question is really blunt, provocative. Why would you invest in 3 or 4% if Bitcoin is returning 55% or more?
It just completely turns traditional financial prudence on its head, right?
Yeah.
You're paying down debt, saving.
Yeah.
Those are the goals.
Saylor sees that as a huge mistake, a misallocation of capital. Like you're choosing to put money into something designed to lose value when this other supposedly superior asset is right there. He really believes you should just sell any weak currency assets and buy Bitcoin.
And for people who maybe can't or won't take on personal debt like a mortgage, he does offer other ways to raise capital, especially for entrepreneurs. He suggests, if you have a solid business idea, start a company and then sell equity in the company. or maybe sell preferred equity, or sell debt in the company, or take the company public.
Use the business to get capital.
Exactly. The method doesn't matter as much as the goal. Find the cheapest cost of capital, the largest amount of capital, and convert it into Bitcoin.
Hmm.
So whether it's personal leverage or fancy corporate finance, the strategy is always get as much cheap capital as you can, turn it into Bitcoin immediately. That, for Saylor, is the ultimate blueprint, building real, lasting, generational wealth in this new digital era. It's all about setting up your capital structure for a future he sees as inevitably centered on Bitcoin.
Wow. Okay, we've taken a really deep dive today into Michael Saylor's vision. It's bold, sometimes, yeah, polarizing. We've looked at his whole blueprint, Bitcoin as this institutional base layer, the scaling through layers 2 and 3, and then his very specific two-part personal strategy. Master AI to boost your value and use cheap debt to aggressively buy Bitcoin. It's definitely a challenging view. It pushes back hard against most conventional financial thinking. It really urges us to rethink wealth, tech, maybe even how the whole global economy works. Saylor isn't just giving investment tips, he's really proposing a whole new paradigm.
Yeah, and if you connect it back to that bigger picture, Saylor really presents Bitcoin as hope, like a scientific fix for what he sees as broken markets and dysfunctional politics, leading to better credit, better equity, better capital markets. He genuinely seems to believe that once you grasp the science behind the current system's failures, Bitcoin becomes the obvious essential tool to build something better, fairer, more functional. So that this does raise a really important question for you, the listener, as you mull over this pretty audacious vision. If Saylor's blueprint actually played out, if we saw this fully integrated Bitcoin-centric global economy he predicts, what happens then? What are the unforeseen challenges, or maybe even greater opportunities that could emerge from such a massive shift in power and capital? What part of Saylor's ultimate strategy stands out most to you? And honestly, after hearing all this, would you actually follow his advice?
That's our deep dive for today. We really hope this gave you some valuable insights, maybe sparked some aha moments, and definitely gave you plenty to think about as you navigate this constantly changing digital world. Remember, our goal here is always to give you a shortcut, help you get well informed, cut through the noise, and really understand the big ideas from some of today's most influential thinkers. So if you enjoyed this deep dive, please do follow, like, and share it. And hey, for more great insights into the world of Bitcoin, you should definitely follow What Bitcoin Taught Me. They're across all the platforms: Twitter, X, Nasters, Bluesky, Threads, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Find them there. We'll see you on the next deep dive.